What up, Spin Fam? Today I'm going to be talking about the Unquiet Hands Quantum Bearing, which is a new bearing that Tom has come out with. I got it on Friday. I spent the weekend with it in these 3 spinners, and I think I've gotten a pretty good idea of what the bearing has to offer and where it falls short for me. Obviously, this is going to be very subjective, so take it with a grain of salt. And some of the things that I'm griping about, not everybody is going to feel the same way, and that's just the kind of the nature of these reviews. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to go over the feel, the sound, and the tolerance, and then I'll give my thoughts on it towards the end. So for my first impressions, 1 out of 3 for feel, which means it's on the smoother side of the bearing scale. For sound, I gave it a 2 out of 3, which means that it's not really quiet, it's not really loud, it's kind of in the middle somewhere. And for the tolerance, I also gave it a 2 out of 3 because it's not really loose and it's not really tight. So it's somewhere in the middle as well. Overall, those ratings haven't really changed. Hybrid ceramic bearings take a little bit to break in, so maybe those will get better over time. But for the time being, after a weekend, the ratings have not really changed. I tried putting oil in the atrium and didn't really cut down on some of the gripe that I have on it. So those are the numbers I have, and they haven't really changed. So for the feel, the reason why I classified it as a 1 out of 3 is because it doesn't really have that vibration, that feedback when you spin it. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people go for smooth bearings, some people go for bearings where you feel it vibrating when it's spinning. I'm kind of in the middle camp, but I do tend to gravitate towards a smoother bearing, and that's just kind of my personal preference. So this one is definitely geared towards that smooth bearing feel. As far as sound goes, it's somewhere in the middle. I think the dyad does kind of highlight the sound a little bit more. So let's give this a spin. So it's kind of starting to dull out. Maybe that's it breaking in. I have been spinning these for the past 3 days, but it is still pretty noticeable. The high-pitched ring, it kind of plays games with my head. That's my main gripe. If you spin this in a quiet room, people are going to notice. I wouldn't say it's loud, and I wouldn't say it's quiet, so I rated it a 2 out of 3. As far as the tolerance goes, the way I gauge this is how much wiggle room it has when you wiggle the arms when it's fully assembled. That feeds into how it feels when you rotate it. With a looser bearing, you're going to feel a lot more of that looseness. And you can see that it's kind of wiggling from side to side. A tighter bearing is going to have a lot less that judder when you change axis. It's not going to slow it down as much. So this is not really a tight bearing. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. I rated it at 2 out of 3, but it's not necessarily loose either. As far as my thoughts, I think it is a very solid bearing. I think that it does have characteristics I would look for in a bearing. The main gripe that I have, as I mentioned, is the high-pitched sound, and I've noticed this in other bearings. I don't know if because this is a review, I'm a little bit more sensitive to it, trying to look for things. That's totally possible. I can't say for sure that I'm not just being kind of whiny, but it is something to note for those of you who do not like the high-pitched ringing. It can be pleasant depending on your taste. So overall, it's a very nice feeling bearing. It doesn't have a lot of judder when you're moving it from side to side. It's pretty much everything I would look for in a bearing. The tolerance is really good. It is a hybrid ceramic, so it will break in over time. I think it is above average, but it does suffer from that high pitch ringing that you do hear in some spinners. And I haven't tried it in any spinners other than these 3. Because I wanted to keep my focus narrowed. I'll probably try them in other spinners now that I've done the review. But overall, I think in these 3 spinners, it's very consistent. The 3 that I got, they pretty much had the same characteristics, and there wasn't any glaring quality issues that some other bearings that are well liked in the community suffer from. I know the HC3Z is one that, in my experience, has some definite quality issues. You'll get some that are just stuck and you can't really spin them, and then after a while of messing with it, you get it to spin and you're able to spin it, but then you kind of let it sit for a couple of days and it just locks up again. I don't know if that's just that nature of that bearing because it's so tight. I don't know, but this one is very consistent. These 3 were pretty much the same, and that's a definite plus. So that pretty much it covers everything that I have to say about this bearing. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would. As far as being a favorite, it kind of depends on if you can get past that ringing. I will definitely be using these in my spinners. I'll probably test them out in other spinners and see which ones have less of that ringing sound in. But overall, it's a really good bearing. Some of you are going to really like that high-pitched ring. If that's something that appeals to you, that could easily make this a 10 out of 10 bearing for you. So I think that's about all I had for the video today. So until next time, I'll catch you later.